Zonzi Urban Radio.
The Southern Urban Experience. Live it, love it, enjoy it.
Still here at a place called Orion. It is the inaugural SATU Northwest Metric Awards, where they're honoring the best performing students of the year 2020. I'm now joined. I'm very careful. I've been briefly, properly briefed, rather, to say, use the right words when you're addressing this gentleman. He's a brother, he's a comrade. His name is Els. But we call him today the Provincial Secretary. My brother, how are you doing this afternoon?
No, thanks, Brati, and thanks for Mzansi Urban for having us this afternoon.
Yes. Once again, you keep setting the standards high. Every event that we go to, we get new things that are doing. But this year you came with a nice innovation to say it's time for you to honor matriculants who are, and schools that are performing very well. What is your motivation? What is your reason for doing this event of honoring the matriculants and schools?
No, thanks. Firstly, I think we must indicate that the Provincial Executive Committee of SATU in the Northwest deemed it fit and necessary to acknowledge and honor the best performing schools in the province, precisely because we know that most of the time the major job of making sure that the results are produced are done by our own teachers at the level of the schools. But at least today get this part of acknowledgement. And as a union, in part of implementing our own long-term vision of the 2030 vision, we said that part of the 2030 vision, pillar number 2, is creating a learning nation. In that, we're necessarily executing the mandate of the organization of making sure that we implement that particular vision. But in doing so, we thought as the PEC that it will be important, noting the difficulties that the schools and the entire school communities would have gone through in the 2020 academic year due to the pandemic. It was going to be important for us to honor the class of 2020 in this particular fashion.
Absolutely, because 2020 was indeed an exceptional year. No year has been like 2020. The pandemic, the lockdowns and so forth. How has 2020 as a year affected school and schooling in the Northwest Province?
Indeed, you would have noted, Brati, that 2020 was a very difficult year. You would have noted equally so that there was a time when people would have then suggested that the entire school year should be scrapped.
Yes.
However, with the challenges that were there, we have noted what we call the stop and go kind of an arrangement where schools were closing and reopening. But what was more difficult was particularly, you'll know that the union has pronounced on the 14 non-negotiables in terms of making sure that the department is able to make sure that the schools necessarily observe all the necessary protocols. You would have known that there were situations where learners could not be taught because of issues of comorbidities, where some of the teachers could not go to school. But worse for the grade 12 class in particular was that the department could not agree to trim the syllabus for the grade 12. So having lost a number of school days in terms of learning and teaching, these learners had to go and also account for the entire syllabus of the grade 12. So that is how difficult the year was. However, then we want to appreciate really the resilience that our teachers, our learners have shown in 2020 in making sure that they go through the year and be able to produce the results.
Educators in South Africa work through very difficult conditions. This is a conversation we've had before where we spoke about security, where we spoke about, remuneration and other things. But on top of that, you now have to deal with a pandemic. You've already mentioned the comorbidities and other, conditions that enhances the effect of the pandemic. What do you say to the teachers in Northwest about their resilience and the fact that come 2021, they're still standing?
Sure. Like we normally say, teaching is a calling. we want to appreciate the commitment that has been shown by the teachers generally, let alone the number of challenges that they are facing. Because we know that ours is a very revolutionary responsibility of making sure that we transform society and black people in general. So we want to continue encouraging our members that whilst the leadership in the back rooms, in the boardrooms, continue to address the challenges that are facing education, they must continue soldiering on because we think it is through education that we can be able to make sure that the country and its future is being transformed going forward.
The Secretary General of the organization at pronouncing during this event, whilst delivering the keynote, touched a bit on the challenges of sexual harassment and sexual abuse. What is your message again to members of SATU, the educating community in the Northwest Province?
Well, as a union, we really have a very clear position in terms of gender-based violence. We are condemning gender-based violence, and you would have also noted that we have had a campaign, which is an ongoing campaign on I'm a School Fan campaign. And I'm a School Fan necessarily talks about our role of teaching, our role of making sure that we denounce violence in our schools. So our message is very clear that those who are perpetuating gender-based violence, they are not doing it in the name of the organization. And equally so, we are saying men and women who are perpetuating gender-based violence, they're not fit to teach in our schools. Hence, you have even our relationship with the South African Council of Educators, which amongst others deals with issues of professionalism of educators. So we are saying as an organization, we'll continue really to condemn everyone who's engaged in this particular senseless behavior of turning the young ones to be either their wives or their husband. And therefore, I think as an organization, we're very clear on that. We are really against this particular kind of behavior.
The other thing that the Secretary General mentioned is the issue of increase. 2020, of course, people say because of the pandemic, there were no increases. We are now in 2021. Have the bargaining negotiations started?
The matter is currently at the Constitutional Court. For 2021, the negotiations started. We are at the process currently where we are engaging our members in terms of the offer on the table, where if we were to indicate that the employer would have noted that when the Minister of Finance presented the medium-term budget framework, yes, he indicated that the government for the next coming 3 years, they will go on a zero budget. And one of the reasons that they have advanced was that they were going to take the 1.5%, which is the pay progression that educators are supposed to get through a process of QMS and QMS in terms of making sure that they reprioritize the budget and that money should be used for COVID-19. However, we can say currently the offer on the table is that we have agreed whilst we're engaging with the members to say we're going to back to the members. One of the things that is on the table is the term of the agreement, which the offer currently says it's a 1-year term, which we have also said as a union will be pleased with 1-year term because we are no longer trusting how the employer has handled the previous multi-term agreement. But the second aspect is that the employer has now tabled 1.5%, the one that they wanted to use or take from pay progression. And they are also paying what we call a cash gratuity in the form of 900 and something for a period of 12 months. So we are consulting our members because it is our members who must then be able to pronounce as to whether the leadership should take the offer on the table or not. So we will in near future be able to pronounce how our members has actually been able to take a position around the current offer on the table. But most importantly, over and above that, we think it is important that in the country, the issue of collective bargaining should be respected because we think it's one of the gains of democracy that we have achieved. Because without collective bargaining, then definitely we'll not have an opportunity to go and negotiate in the best interest of our members.
Else, I'm going to put you on the spot here, my brother, and ask you whether you think that we're going to see rolling mass action on top of the pandemic that we currently faced with? Do you anticipate seeing a situation where educators and other members of SADTU might have to go to the streets in protest of the bargaining process that's not going too well?
Well, like I've just said earlier on, Brati, it is not for the leadership to make a determination. The members of the organization will direct us, because we are led by our members, who will then say this is the route that we must take. And we must also just indicate, we know that in terms of the Labor Relations Act currently, we will have to undergo a process of balloting the members. If our members, through a survey, currently we are conducting a survey, because there are challenges of convening mass meetings because of limitations of COVID. So we are conducting a survey where we want to get a feel of the members. So once the majority of the members say we must go to a strike, we'll also conduct that particular survey. And I think at a particular time, then we'll make that particular decision as the National Executive Committee after collating the mandate from our members. And surely, if the members would have pronounced on the strike action, it will not be our role as the leadership really to divert from the call of our members.
And these are hard things to talk about. So let's move to the more softer things. Today, the educators were recognized. They were working very hard. Of these awards, which one stand out the most for you that you really think, and reflecting on today's events, it really suits your soul and it makes your heart very happy?
I think the award of the best rural schools, to me, it's an outstanding award, primarily because of the situations that we know our rural schools are faced with. When you go to the rural schools in the province and across the country, really the situation is very dire. It's very demoralizing. The morale of the teachers are down. However, you realize that these particular teachers, they continue soldiering on. So to me, really, this is one of the awards, because we know that the historical mission of our organization is for making sure that we really maintain the public quality education. And these rural schools, albeit the challenges that one would have spoken to, where that there are child-headed families, there are issues of poverty, you name many challenges that are there. However, they continue to soldier on and make sure that they are able to deliver the best interest of the learners.
The past 3 years, the province has been very consistent in terms of its performance. 5, 6, 5, and so forth. It has not dropped drastically. You're looking at 2021, some are saying it's going to be a more challenging and difficult year than 2020 was, because I interviewed someone here who said learners of the matriculants of 2021 did not even complete a proper school year in grade 11. This is a demand again on the teachers. This is going to be another pressure for them. What do you say to them? How do you get them to, remain encouraged in delivering the consistent performance that they have been delivering in the past 3 to 4 years?
Well, as SADTU, we are a very progressive organization. And one of the things that we always champion is that our teachers must continue to be revolutionary in terms of the tasks that they carry. One of those is that they must be on task, they must be on time, they must teach. Those are the things that we will continue to be able to speak to as the organization. Because as against the doomsayers who think that this organization, it's only about strikes and all those things, we are championing a good education. And therefore, we think, albeit all these challenges that has been spoken to, particularly with the class of 2021, because you'll know that the curriculum in grade 12 will not be streamed. So we'll continue to encourage our educators to say, look, under these difficult circumstances, continue to do your revolutionary task of making sure that really we're able to shape up the future of these learners. And we think we have confidence in our teachers. And you'll know that there's a big organization, majority of teachers in these schools in the country and in the province are SADTU members. And therefore the results that you are seeing here are our results. But I want to indicate, Brati, that us is not about who gets position one, because for us that thing is ill-informed. You cannot compare apples with bananas. You have provinces that are highly resourced, like your Gauteng, for an example, and you compare them with provinces that are very rural, like your Northern Cape, which is very vast, your KZN, your Eastern Cape, including Northwest. So we are saying to us, it's about quality of results. It's about learners achieving and going beyond the normal schooling. So the issues of positions, which sometimes is being championed and it leads to unnecessary competition, to us it's not an issue. For us, we want to see majority of learners performing. You'll understand that the ruling party, through its national development plan, has set targets in terms of performance of learners, particularly in mathematics and science, because you know that we've got serious skill shortage in the country, and we think that if the government could, as they are reprioritizing the budget, they could put a lot of money in terms of making sure that issues of teacher development in the country are being addressed. But over and above that, your foundation classes, where the learners are able to get better foundation, the money is pumped there, so that as the learners are progressing from one grade to the other grade, they are able then to cope with whatever challenges that they are facing.
I was going to end the interview, but there is a follow-up that I want to take on that point in particular. What you mentioned about positions and number one and number two is very critical. And we know that this is driven primarily by KPIs and other things that people are set. How different then are these awards for today? How qualitative are they relative to just honoring quantity? In designing today's awards, the inaugural SATU Northwest Matric Awards, what are the things that you did to ensure that you're just not celebrating numbers for the sake of numbers?
Indeed, Prati, as you would have noted, we spoke about the number of categories. Amongst what the criteria that we have looked into is the number of learners who would have enrolled in a particular school. And we looked into schools that have enrolled at least more than 120 matriculants. And to us, with the circumstances that we are faced with, particularly your quintile 1, 2, 3 schools, because quintile 1, 2, 3 schools are our own farm schools, our own rural, our own township schools. So that is what we have seen to be the best model, unlike necessarily awarding the schools that are already resourced. Because if we would have probably concentrated, like for an example, in quintile 5 schools, obviously you'll have your previous model C schools being the ones who are scooping the awards today. But we think that we must be biased to the poorest of the poorest. Hence, we think that out of the criteria that we've applied, we have actually selected the best quality in terms of the performance of the schools within the province.
One of those is a school in the JB Max region, and they performed quite well. 207 enrollments, and they got 97% part. We spoke to the principal there. I call him Bramaik. And he was saying that the school is from a very poor area, RDP area, and yet they were able, amongst those challenges, to rise above and still get this type of percentages. What do you say to that school? What do you say to people, to doomsayers who are saying township schools are failing, township schools are not making it?
Definitely, it's evident that whatever the doomsayers are saying, it is not something that is being informed by the reality on the ground. We can confirm that that school, I think for the previous 5 or 6 years, they have been hovering at 90% and above. And it's a clear demonstration that there's a lot of capacity in our schools. It's a clear demonstration that once the department can also reprioritize their budget, once the department can also make sure that in terms of their teacher development programs, they are able to make sure that they also pump money into the schools to make sure that the teachers are developed. But one of the most important things as an organization, we are speaking about I'm a school fan campaign, which I spoke about. I want to emphasize it because that campaign brings the communities closer to the schools, because it could not be only educators who can manage to turn the situation around, but the educators need the support of the entire school community. So schools like BACOB are but examples of schools that are there, and many of them which are there, which can demonstrate that indeed schools in the townships can equally perform the same as the schools in the towns, those who are former model schools. The only difference is that you might find that those particular schools, your quintile 4 and 5, because they are a fee-paying schools. They are able to charge exorbitant fund to an extent that they've got even extra personnel, whereas our own schools are able to deal with the little personnel that the department is affording them. So we really congratulate PACOB and the rest of the other schools that are performing similar. And we have such schools like your HF Clo here around here. There are many of these schools that we can say really they are doing great job. And I think over and above that, it also speaks to the management of those particular schools, because it tells you that indeed their management is really in a good shape to make sure that they are able to steer the ship under the circumstances.
The provincial secretary, okay, this is correct, right? Provincial secretary of the South African Democratic Teachers Union in the Northwest Province, my dear brother, Comrade Els, thank you for your time. Always articulate, always very clear. And thank you for being not only a visionary, but a revolutionary who's able to see and ensure that there's growth in education. We salute you, we salute your members, and we know the type of conditions that you find yourself in and working in. But still, continue to soldier on, showing a lot of resilience. We're proud of your work and your effort. Once again, congratulations for this beautiful event, and we hope to see you in the next event.
Thank you, Brati. We want to take these accolades and send them to our members because without them, we are nothing as the leadership. But over and above that, we think SATU is a good union. It's a choice for the teachers, and we encourage teachers to belong to this particular organization. And we want to thank again Mzansi Eben for always being with us
Absolutely.
in our activities. We appreciate a lot your time and your efforts, and thank you very much for having us once more. Thanks.
No, thanks very much. Thanks very much. That was the provincial secretary of the province in the Northwest Province of the South African Democratic Teachers Union.